Identify confounding variables. Well, before we can identify them, it's good to know what they are. So let's talk about the concept of confounding variables. So consider two variables, any two things. You want to see if they're related. Okay, so we want to see if the amount of water I drink impacts my sleep schedule, right? Two things: sleep schedule, amount of water I drink. Great, doesn't matter, whatever. So we do a study and we see there is a relationship between those two things. But is it truly only between those two variables? Or is there a third variable, and this is what we call the confounding variable, that has a relationship to each of the other variables? So if we're going back to my example of drinking water and sleep habits, what if I'm on a medication and that medication side effects are it makes you thirsty and it disrupts your sleep? Well, then it's like, but this whole, if I stop taking the medication, does the water still, matter with my sleep? So that the confounding variable is something that also impacts whatever you're studying and can cause, your data to not be as accurate as possible, basically. All right, so let's think about some examples. Eating habits versus weight gain. Right, so some people say, well, if you just eat, clean eating, fruits and vegetables, lean protein, you won't gain any weight. But if you, all you eat is sugar and you live on ice cream and maybe you'll gain weight. Okay, these are probably true things, but what if your exercise habits? Did we talk about that? Because if you exercise a lot and you eat sugar, you might not gain any weight because you might exercise enough to kind of combat that. So the confounding variable would be the exercise habits because that impacts both eating habits and weight gain, or it can. So that's the idea when we're talking about a confounding variable. So when you're conducting an experimental or observational study, you must think through all potential variables that could impact the study. You may need a plan to control for those confounding variables. If you don't plan for them, they could interrupt and interfere with your study. So you want to test the effect of sugar on a child's sleep patterns. What could be some confounding variables? So just stop and think about this for a minute. Talking about child sleep patterns and the effect of sugar. Those are the two kind of things. Well, what could impact those? Well, physical activity throughout the day. If a kid is just super, super, super active, maybe sugar won't impact their sleep because they're going to be so tired. Stress at home or at school. If you have a lot of stress, whether you're a child or an adult, right, that impacts your sleep. Medications that could be impacted by sugar and or sleep. Your overall eating habits, right? Somebody who drinks caffeine regularly, and then you're like, ooh, does Mountain Dew make you not be able to sleep? And you're like, I live on this stuff. It doesn't impact me at all, right? So we might have to just look at the overall eating habits for this one. Time of the year or life events. As a child, I remember the month of December, man, I just never slept well. I was always just so excited. Like, was there going to be snow? We're going to have a day off of school. The holidays were coming. I was going to get to, hang out with my cousins. So what's happening in life of that child? Because that could also impact things and potentially effective sugar. So you just have to think through when you're looking at a study, what are the two things we're studying and what else could impact those things? Thanks.